Good evening to everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar session. My name is Lucky Dlamini and I will be your host for this session. We are live on the SciFest and the Sci Facebook pages. There are just two house rules for you to remember. Please remember to mute your mic during the presentation, and please use the chat function if you have any questions or remarks. Our presenter today is Dr. Chantel Elston, who is the manager of the South African ELMO branch monitoring. In short, it is known as ELMO. The title for today's webinar is You Can Become a Scientist Too: How to Identify Mermaid's Purses, also known as shark egg cases for shark conservation. Here is a little bit more about ELMO. ELMO is a citizen science project relying on data collected from members of the public. We are trying to understand where sharks and rays live along the South African coastline so that we can better protect these vulnerable animals. We encourage members of the public to let us know when they have encountered a shark or ray in the wild. You can be an angler, a diver, a snorkeler, or even a beach walker. We also want to know when and where mermaids' purses wash ashore. Did you know that these are actually the egg cases of sharks and rays? Certain species lay eggs after their juvenile has hatched, and these egg cases wash ashore. Every species egg case looks a little different, so in this workshop, you will learn how to identify which species the egg case came from. We'll go through a list of the most popular egg cases you will be most likely to find and the important features to look out for when identifying them. That way, whenever you pick up an egg case on the beach, you will have the skills to identify them and you will be able to help scientists in their effort to conserve sharks and rays. I will now hand over to Dr. Chantel Elston to begin with the session.
Thanks so much, Lucky, and thank you so much to SciFest for having us. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Lucky, is that all right?
All good, Chantal, thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, hello.
Sorry, Chantal, we just need the full screen to one more. It's still on your presenter view.
Oh, now it's the other way around. Hold on.
Yes, that's it.
Oh,
perfect. That's it. Got it.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. What's the other way in our trial? Now it's just getting confusing. Okay. Hello, everybody. Again, we'll start this again. As introduced, my name is Chantel. I am the project manager for ELMO, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. But it is a bit disconcerting just, talking to a screen. So please use the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom. Type in your name, where you're from, let us know who you are, if there's any children joining us today. Type in how old you are, what grade you're going to, if you're excited for school to start on Monday. I know we're all getting back into the swing of things with the new year, so that's going to be super exciting for a lot of you, I'm sure. I just need to figure out how to see my chat function now that my screen is shared. Oh, I can't see the chat function. I can't figure out.
I will monitor that for you, don't stress.
Okay, thanks, Lucky. Let me know if there's anything coming through. Anybody out there want to let us know who they are?
Yes, we've got Kirsten and Zach, he says, who is 4 years old, and they are very excited to speak to a scientist.
We're very excited to speak to you. Hello, Zach.
And we also have, hi there, Jamie here, second year conservation ecology student.
That is very, very cool.
Everyone seems to be shy. Here comes another one. Hi, I am Darlene, a grade 7 homeschooler from Cape Town, 13 years old.
Hi, Darlene, that's amazing. So cool that you're homeschooled, and we hope you're going to enjoy the presentation with us.
And then we have, hi, I am Ililu, and I am 6 years old.
Very cool. So are we starting school this year?
And then hello, middle-aged peeps that love the sea. Yeah, we seem to have a lot of little peeps around.
Awesome.
Hi,
Well,
Chantel, Kelsey, and Andrew are 12 years and 14 years, also homeschoolers.
wow, a lot of homeschoolers out there. That's very, very cool. Your parents are working hard. Okay, I think I'm going to get started. So as I said, I am very grateful to SciFest for hosting us. And I just want to give a brief introduction to me, say hello, my name is Chantel, as I've said, I'm the project manager for ELMO. So if you've messaged us through social media or sent us a WhatsApp message or interacted in any way, it's me that you're talking to. So hello, now you can put a face to a name. And I am pretty much homegrown from Cape Town. I've lived most of my life here. That's where I am based today with the lovely southeaster wind that's blowing. I don't know if anybody else out there is enjoying the lovely Cape Town wind. I'm super passionate about sharks and rays. I've had 7 years of experience working in the research field with sharks and rays. And I have been working with ELMO for quite a while. So a couple of years ago, I was with Edgemead Primary School doing some workshops with them on the beach. Obviously now with COVID, everything is a little bit different. So we have to move things to an online platform. So I hope you're all going to get something out of this workshop. This is the first time for me doing something like this. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it informative. I have tried to make it easily accessible to all ages. So whether you're 4 years old or whether you're a middle-aged beach lover. So I apologize if some things are going to be a little bit simple or if some things are going to be a little bit complicated, but I've tried to find a happy medium. So I hope it works for all of you. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about ELMO and who exactly are we? So ELMO is short for South African elasmobranch monitoring. And now elasmobranch is quite a big and complicated word, but it's really easy once you break it down. And it simply means a group of animals that includes both your sharks and your rays. So sharks, obviously, you know, are things like your great white shark and your hammerhead shark or your ragged tooth shark. These are the big iconic ones we get in South Africa. But then we also get a lot of really small, cute little cat sharks, like the one on your top right over there. That is a puff adder shy shark. And we get things like pyjama sharks and all kinds of fun species. And in the world, we have over 500 species of sharks. So really, there are so many of them out there. And it's the same with rays. We even have more species of rays. We have over 600 species of them. Things like stingrays, manta rays, eagle rays. You even get some freshwater stingrays. So there's a whole bunch of them that live in our oceans, and they're really, really cool animals. And the reason why sharks and rays are grouped together in this umbrella animal term called elasmobranchs is because they actually share a lot of really similar characteristics. So if we look at both sharks and rays, they don't have scales like normal fish do. Instead, their skin is made up of something called dermal denticles, which is like sandpaper. So if you're rubbing your hand along the skin of a shark or a ray, it's going to feel like sandpaper, but it reduces friction in the water and helps them to swim super fast. And we all know sharks need to go fast so they can catch their prey that they eat. They also do not have a single bone in their body. No sharks or rays have any bones in their body. Their whole skeleton is made out of something called cartilage, which is the stuff in your nose or in your ears. So their whole skeleton is made out of this, and it helps them to stay buoyant so that they don't sink to the bottom of the ocean floor. And then finally, for both sharks and rays, the males have claspers, which are organs that help them to make babies or to reproduce. And they are the only groups of animals to have these organs. So again, it is unique to them. And even though there are some ways that sharks and rays are different, they have all of these similarities. So that's why we group them together in this term of elasmobranchs. And that's why we focus on both of these animal groups. So now that we've spoken a bit about ELMO, elasmobranchs, now we're going to talk about you guys and why we need your help. So me, myself, I am a scientist, and we as scientists, we try to understand the natural world around us. We go out there and we count things and we measure things, we photograph things, and all of this information that we collect is called data. And this data helps us to figure out how the weird and wonderful, wild world around us works. And without the data, we're lost. We really don't understand how the world around us works. But unfortunately, trying to go out and collect this information can be very time consuming, and it can also be very expensive. And there are only so many scientists, and there's only so much money that we have. And we're actually falling behind in terms of trying to collect enough information to protect a lot of the plants and animals that live on our planet. A lot of them are in danger of going extinct, and we actually don't have enough information available to make good plans in order to try and protect them. And to highlight this, I want to talk about rays in South Africa. So we have 89 species of rays that occur along our coastline, but it's only this one species that is here in this video. This is called the blue stingray. It is only this one species that has been researched scientifically in South Africa. So all the other 88 species, we really don't know much about them. We don't know simple things like how many of them are there? What do they eat? Where do they like to live? How many populations are there? So if you think of it, if you're in school and you're in a classroom and you and all your friends hang out in the classroom, and there's another classroom and all of those kids hang out in that classroom, you're pretty much separate for most of the time. Sometimes you'll come together for break times, but a lot of the times you'll be separate. But we don't even know if this is how rays like to behave. We don't know if they're all just in one big school together or if they're separate. And these are really important things if we want to know how to protect them. So that is the why. You may be looking at me and thinking, but why, Chantel? Why do we need to know what they eat? Why do we need to know where they live? As I said, a lot of these animals are in danger of going extinct. And very recently, about a week or two ago, there was a big scientific paper that was published, which showed us that sharks and rays, the global populations, have declined by 75%. So they really are in trouble, and they really do need our help. And that's why we need you. So as I said, there's only a limited number of scientists out there. And actually, a lot of the time, we're stuck behind our computer, looking at that information that we gather and trying to figure out what's going on. And I know that you guys also have your own lives, you have work, you have school, but there's a lot more of you out there than there are of us. So there's always somebody walking along the beach, there's always somebody on the boat, there's always somebody fishing. So there's always somebody out there seeing what's going on in the ocean. And that is, you guys are like our eyes and our ears out there, and that is super valuable information to us. And that is why we ask you to help us collect this information so that we can start getting, in front of the curve instead of being behind the curve, so we can gather enough information, know how these animals live their lives, and know how to protect them. So that is why we ask all of you to submit your encounters with sharks and rays and their egg cases. There are a lot of different ways you can get involved in this concept called citizen science, which is when we use members of the public to gather information for us. If you're into birds, there's like a birding app that you can use. If you're into insects, you can collect information on insects. But obviously, we at ELMO are interested in sharks and rays. So when you're out and about and you're on the beach and you pick up a mermaid's purse, or if you're fishing and you catch a shark or a ray, or if you're just out snorkeling or diving and you see them, we want to know about it, because as I said, this information is super useful. It helps us to know where they live, why do they like to live there, and also it helps us to monitor trends. So if we're starting to get consistent submissions from you and we see, okay, every week we get about 10 egg cases in this area, and then all of a sudden we stop seeing them, we can start to look at these trends, and it's like an early warning system to know if there's something going on in the ocean that we don't know about. So this information is really, really important, and why we ask you to share it with us. But I think that's enough prattling on. We're here because we want to know how to identify egg cases. That's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the presentation. So not all sharks and rays lay eggs. Your really big sharks, like your great whites and your ragged tooth sharks, they actually give birth to live young, and so do your stingrays. But it's your smaller species of sharks, like your cat sharks and your puff adder shark and your pyjama shark, they are the ones who lay eggs. And also there's a specific group of rays known as skates, and it is the skates that lay eggs. So those are the animals that we're going to be talking about. So a quick walk through the life cycle of these egg cases and how the heck do they wash up on our beaches and why do we find them? So as I said, we have these two groups of animals. We have the small sharks and we have the skates, and both of these groups of animals actually lead pretty different lives in terms of behavior. So your small sharks, they like to hang out in amongst the kelp beds, amongst some rocks, cold water reefs, that sort of thing. They like a lot of structure around them. Whereas your skates, on the other hand, they prefer these open sandy habitats because they like to hide in the sand. They like to eat things that live in the sand. So they have very different behaviors. And because of these different behaviors, their egg cases look very different. So with your small sharks, they like to attach their egg cases either to rocks or piece of kelp. So their egg cases have these long, thin tendrils on the end that they use to attach the egg cases to whatever they can find. Whereas for your skates, because they live in the sand, they actually bury their egg cases in the sand. And so these egg cases don't have tendrils, but they have horns on the end. And these horns help the egg cases to stay buried in the sand. So you have these two very different groups of animals and two very different kinds of egg cases. So here at ELMO, we've been collecting data for a while, and we have records of over 5,000 egg cases, which is really cool, spanning 12 different species, which is just super exciting and super interesting. So the most common one that we get, the one that you'll be most likely to find around, is the puff-adder shy shark. And we'll get into how these egg cases look in a little bit. That's something called the Twinite Skate. So you can see he's got these two little black dots on his back. That is also a very common species. We have a dark shy shark, and those are our top three main species that we're going to find. Some of the rarer ones, which we don't find very often, is something called your rough-nosed leg skate, your munchkin skate, which is a very cool species, and it's called a munchkin skate because it's the smallest ray species we get along the whole coastline. It's like a maximum of 15 centimeters, so it's really little. And then we have the brown shy shark, and those are our most three rare egg cases. But yeah, today we're going to go through the most common ones and see what they look like and how do they differ. This I thought was quite an interesting graph. So we have month on your x-axis along the bottom, and we have the number of egg cases going up. So it's really just showing you how many egg cases we see per month. And this is in total from all of our submissions. And I would have thought that we would have got more submissions in summer because that's when a lot of people are out and about on the beach. At least that's what I would have thought. But in fact, it's the opposite. It's mostly in spring and autumn that we're getting these submissions. So once we start getting some more data rolling in, then we can start looking at, are there seasonal trends? Do these sharks and skates like to lay their eggs in spring and autumn, or is there something else going on? So those are some questions we can start looking at. And then finally, this is where where you find them, not where we find them, where you pick them up. A lot of it is on the south coast, especially around Plettenberg Bay. We have a lot coming from Port Elizabeth. We have a lot coming from False Bay. So mostly along the south coast area, a few up the west coast, none really up the east coast. And that's purely because of the fact that we don't really get species that lay eggs on the east coast. So it's mostly the south and west coast where you're going to find them. Now, I'm going to talk you through all of these, but we do have an online identification guide. So if you go to our website, you'll be able to download this PDF document and you'll be able to keep it and use it and help you identify these egg cases. We'll work through each of these, as I said, but you'll be able to access this and keep it so you can use it going forward if you've forgotten something or anything like that. So these are all of the shark ones we're going to go through. We're going to go through 4 different shark ones. And then we're actually going to go through 3 different skate ones. There's one that's not here, and then something special called a chimera, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So the first thing you need to figure out is whether it's a shark or a skate. And as I've said, this is quite easy because they look quite different. Your shark's long, more rectangular, have these tendrils along the end. Your skate is more square, has the horns. So these are pretty easy to identify in terms of that. And that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Is it a shark or is it a skate? If it is a pretty tricky one to identify, say for instance it's been washed up on the beach and it looks like it's been there for weeks or months, it's all dry and shriveled up and the colors aren't right, one of the best things you can do is to take it home with you and soak it in water for a couple of hours, because this really brings the egg case back to life. It brings the colors back to life. It makes it the correct size. So if it's one that you're struggling to identify, I highly recommend doing this, but you don't always have to do it. Sometimes it's not possible, and sometimes it's very easy to identify the egg case without going through this procedure. So I'm going to be talking about the shark ones first, but I do want to play you a video to show you the difference in the sizes of the sharks that I'm talking about, because the egg cases are different in sizes, so the sharks are different in sizes. And I just wanted to show it to you because it's quite drastic when you see it. So this is some underwater video footage that was collected in Plettenberg Bay, and we'll see a big shark and a little shark. So the first one we'll see is this stripy guy coming up from the right. He is a pyjama shark, and he's one of the bigger shy sharks that we get. And then from the middle of the screen, keep your eyes at the bottom middle, right there is the little puff adder shy shark coming up. So you can see he's so much smaller than the pyjama shark. He's about a third or even a quarter of the size. So these shark species really do differ in sizes, and that's why their egg cases differ in sizes. So we'll go through the two smaller shark species first. So this is the puff adder shy shark and the dark shy shark. Their egg cases, because they are so small, their egg cases are quite small. They're about a maximum of 5 centimeters in length, excluding the tendrils. So if we're just focusing on the body, they're about the size of your thumb. So they really are quite little, but there is a way to tell these two apart, even though they're the same size, and that is through their patterning. So on the puff adder shy shark, you can see there's these horizontal bands that go across, whereas the dark shy shark is easy to remember. Dark shy shark, dark egg case. So it has this really dark, plain brown egg case, no patterns, nothing special like that. Sometimes there can be a bit of variation in the color. So if you see on your bottom left picture, even though it's quite dark, you can still kind of see these horizontal bands going across. So that's going to be a puff adder shy shark. Whereas your middle one and your right hand one is just a plain dark brown egg case. So those are going to be your dark shy sharks. So these are your smallest shark egg cases that you'll find. And the next two are going to be a little bit bigger because these are the bigger shy sharks. So you have the pyjama shark and the leopard cat shark. And again, they are pretty easy to tell apart in terms of their color and even their texture. So the pyjama shark, the biggest one, their egg case is going to be about 10 centimeters long. So that's about 2 of your thumbs. And it has this really dark brown olivey color, and the walls of the egg case are very, very thick, which is in contrast to your leopard cat shark, where it's much lighter in color and your walls are very thin. So if you look at the two bottom right images, there you can see the walls are almost see-through. So the walls are much thinner, much lighter in color, and those are how you tell those two apart. Sometimes, again, they can be a little bit tricky. So if you look at the second image from your left-hand side, where there's 4 egg cases in the same image, there's 2 of them that actually look really light, and you may mistake them for leopard cat sharks, but you can actually just see that this is sun bleaching because on the tips, there's this dark brown color. So they used to be dark brown before they got sun bleached. So you just got to look out for that and be wary. But yeah, color and the thickness of the egg case walls are a good indicator. So those are your 4 shark species. And I love this image because it really just shows you the variability in terms of the colors, but it still shows the patterns. So pretty much all of your shark egg cases in the top part have those stripes on them. So even though some are much lighter, some are much darker, they have the stripes on them. So then you know they're the puff adder shy shark. The ones in the middle and along the bottom, again, there's a lot of color differences. Some are more of a light brown, some are a darker brown, but they're a plain color, no stripes. So those are your dark shy sharks. And then the 2 on the very left, the bigger ones in the middle, those are your lighter, bigger ones, and those are going to be your leopard cat sharks. So yeah, these ones are pretty easy to tell apart, your sharks. There's pretty much only 4 of them you're going to come across, and depending on the size and color, you're going to know what they are. Then before we get onto the skates, I'm going to talk about this weird and wonderful animal called the St. Joseph shark. And even though its name is a shark, it's not a shark. This is something we call a chimera, which is kind of like halfway between a shark and a fish. And there's only one of them that lives in the shallow waters and lay eggs that you're going to find. And it's also a super distinctive shape. So it's this really also pretty big. It's about 20 centimeters long, very thick in the middle with tendrils along the end. And it also has these feathery bits on the outside. And the chimera also lays its egg in the sand. So these feathery bits just help the egg case to stay buried in the sand. So you're going to have a really big egg case with these distinctive feathery bits. If it is dry, those feathery bits do become quite brittle. So you can see in the sort of bottom right image, those feathery bits can break off, but there's still this very distinctive shape. And if you see anything that looks like it, you know for sure it's going to be a St. Joseph shark. So that's another pretty easy one to identify. Then we get onto the trickier ones, and I hope you're still with me because these ones are a little bit more difficult. We're going to go through 3 of the most common skate egg cases, but there are a lot more which can be pretty tricky to identify. But this, you can also find this on our website. It's just a basic diagram of the skate egg case and sort of the names that you'll come across. And if I'm talking about size, again, I'm just talking about the body. I'm not talking about the horns on either end. Sometimes the horns can be the same size, sometimes one end can be smaller, the other end can be longer. So there's lots of different things you can look out for in skate egg cases to help you identify them. But the first one we'll go through is this one called the Twinite Skate. So remember, this is the guy with the 2 little circles on his back. That's why he's called a Twinite Skate. And he lays really, really small egg cases. So again, it's only about 5 centimeters, excluding the horns. So it's about the size of your thumb. It's kind of like this really dark, really shiny egg case. And you can see it has these very distinct, equal-sized horns. So these guys are pretty easy to identify, and sometimes you can also find them in groups, but not all the time. Sometimes they can be single. And then the next species looks really, really similar, but it's just bigger. So this is something called the Biscuit Skate, which isn't in our ID guide, but it's actually become quite a popular submission. So that's why I've chosen to include it. So I'm just going to go back again. So you can see how similar they look. They're both black, they're both shiny, they both have these pointy horns on the end that are equal in size. But the only difference really between them is the size of the body. So these are a bit bigger. These are about 7 to 8 centimeters in length, just the body. So again, it's really the size that's going to help you differentiate here. And this one in the middle looks a little bit brown, which may be a bit off-putting, but I think that's just because it's been in the sun for a really long time. But given the size and the shape, I'm pretty confident that it's a Biscuit Skate. So again, you have your Twinite Skate, which is much smaller. You have your Biscuit Skate, which is kind of the one in the middle. And then finally, we have my favorite egg case, which is the Spear Nose Skate. And this bad boy is huge. If you manage to come across one of them on the beach, you're super lucky. They're one of my favorites. They are almost sort of, again, 20 centimeters in length, excluding the horns. I love this image on the bottom right where you can see the size comparison with another egg case and with a matchbox, and you can just really see how big they are. And unlike the previous 2 where it was this really shiny surface, these guys are much more rough, and you can see this nicely in the middle image that somebody sent through to us, a nice close-up. So it has this very rough surface. So yeah, this is the Spear Nose Skate. I don't know if you want to remember it in the way that he has a spear, so he's really big, so he has a really big egg case. However you want to remember it, that's up to you. But those are the 3 most common skate egg cases you're going to come across. You have your small one, your medium one, and your big one. But there are probably going to be ones you might come across that are not one of these three. And if you're feeling super brave and super confident in your identification skills and you come across one that you're not sure what it is, we have this key that is also part of our identification guide on our website. It's a bit more complicated and it's a bit more tricky. It's based on a scientific paper that was released in 2008. The paper itself has the pictures in to help you. So if you're interested in trying to identify a crazy egg case, email me and I will send you the paper, and you can use both this key that we've developed as well as the pictures to try and help you identify what it is. That's completely up to you, but do not stress if you cannot identify it. Pop us a picture and we'll do that for you. So that's what we did with this one, this big image on your right. It was sent to us last year, and this was really the only one that was sent to us that didn't fit in any of the other 3 skate egg cases. And it took me a while to identify. It stumped me at first, but eventually I got it right. And the only way I was able to identify it is because of its kind of distinctive bell shape. So you can see it's quite fat at the top and quite thin at the bottom. So I was able to identify this as a rough-nosed leg skate, the only one that we've had submitted to us, which is really cool. Sometimes you can't ID them. So if you look at the image on the left, the third egg case from the top, it's kind of broken and damaged, and it's not really a whole egg case. So those ones are not really easily identifiable. Probably you're not able to identify them at all. But most of the time, it's going to be one of the ones we're covered. They're going to be pretty easy to identify. So again, just a quick recap. You have your 2 small shark ones, your puff adder shy shark with the stripes, your dark shy shark, just the plain brown color, your 2 bigger ones, which is your Pyjama Shark, again, a darker color, your Leopard Cat Shark, which is your lighter color. Then this weird guy in the middle, who's our St. Joseph Shark, the Chimera, who doesn't belong anywhere, but still lays eggs. And then finally, our 3 skate species that we went to, small, twin-eyed, medium biscuit, and large spear-nosed skate. So oftentimes it's much easier to identify them if you have lots of ones to compare it to. So this is also one of my favorite images where we have a beautiful Pyjama Shark on our left, lots of little puff adders along the bottom, and then the 2 skates. And you can really see the size difference here where you have the small twin-eyed and the big biscuit. So sometimes if you just have one of them, it's a bit difficult to ID because you don't have comparisons. But if you have a few of them, if you have a collection going, you can compare and you can say, oh yeah, this is much smaller than that one, so it must be that one. So comparing can also be a really good trick to use if you are struggling in identification. So yeah, I'm going to end it off there. I don't want to take up too much of your time. As I said, this information is super valuable to us. If you're going out there photographing and sending the image to us, it's not a waste of your time. It's not a waste of our time. It's very valuable information that we are going to use. If you are sending us an image, we ask please that if you do send us a submission, always include the image, even if you're confident in your identification, because we just want to double check that from our side. So please send us through an image. If you can, put a ruler next to it, like in this one, because that just helps us with the sizing. But if you're on the beach and you don't have a ruler, because who does, just put your car key next to it, put a coin next to it or something so that we can tell the size on our side. And send us through the image, the date and the location of where you found it. We have the WhatsApp number that we've introduced. We have our website. We have our social media that you can keep track of what's happening with us, the email address. So please reach out to us. Any questions, any comments, any feedback. I might not reply to you exactly on that day, but I will definitely respond to you within a couple of days. We're always here for you, as I said, if you had any questions. And yeah, before I open the floor up to any questions in the chat, we're going to run a poll quickly. I'm going to ask you 3 questions and see if you have learned anything in our identification workshop. So I'm just going to ask Ryan. Right, there we go. He's on it. So this is our first question. Please vote. Who does, I have some with me over here. I hope you guys can see. So this is our first egg case. Who does this one belong to?
You want to stop your share screen, Chantel, so we can see?
That's a good idea. I can do that. Stop share. Okay. Not that one's so neat. Hold on 2 seconds. There we go. Okay, so we have this one over here. What do we think? We've got 8 voted for so far, 10 voted, 11, 13. Sure, you guys are paying attention tonight. I'm so impressed. After a long week, a long hot week, you're still with me. Okay. 19 voted. Wonderful. I think I'm going to share it there. And you are all 100% correct. As I said, you're all with it tonight. 100% dark shy shark. Excellent. We have a second question.
Okay, give me a sec.
No worries. All right, this one. Who does this egg case belong to? Is it a Twinite skate or a spear nose skate? Something I actually forgot to mention about this one is unlike the other two, which have those really pointy ends, I actually have an example here. So this guy has these really short pointy ends. This one has sort of these long tendril-like things. So it's not necessarily these pointy horns. And sometimes these can break off. So it may look like it comes to a point, but you can generally tell that it's not really a point, and it has these long sort of tendril things. So that's just something I forgot to mention during the presentation. We have 19 people who voted. And we have an 84% correct answer, which is excellent. Well done, guys. This is the spear nose skate. This is the biggest egg case you're going to find. Belongs to the spear nose skate. Twinite skate was the one I just showed you. So this one, it's much smaller, has these pointy ends. So that's going to be your Twinite skate. And this is your spear nose skate. And then we have one more question for you. All right, this one. Does this egg case belong to a shark? Yes or no? Remember, this one also has these feathery bits on the end, which have become quite hard because this is very dry. It's been sitting in my cupboard for a while. But again, these are things that you can soak. Once they've been in water for a couple of hours, they really do come back to life. It's really fun to do. I recommend doing it if you have some time and if you find these. The color completely changes, the texture completely changes. So give them a soak and see how it goes. Okay, you guys are the winners. We have 95% no, and you are correct in that. So this is going to be our chimera egg case, which is neither a shark nor a skate. He's our weird little guy in the middle. So that's our chimera egg case. And yeah, please, if there are any questions, pop them into the chat. I can see there is one here. What are the most common sharks skate we find in the North Coast? So I assume you mean the Western North Coast, as in the Northern Cape. And those I'm not actually 100% sure because, as I said, we haven't really received egg cases from that area. But I would imagine you would actually get a lot of these, a lot of the St. Joseph egg cases because they're quite common up there. I'm not sure about things like your puff adder shy shark. You might get them there, but probably not as common because the water is so cold up there. But again, I can't really say because we haven't received egg cases from up there. So if you're in that region and you find them, please send that through because that's an area that we are missing. And another question is, what cases do you find the most? So in the whole coastline, the most common is going to be those puff adder sharks. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show you because even though they're the most common, I've never managed to find one. So those are those really, it looks very similar to this. It's the one with the stripes on it, puff adder sharks. Those are the most common that we've had submitted. So yeah, those are our most common ones. Contact details and the WhatsApp number. Yes, I'm going to share my screen again if I can, so you have those details. Is that all right, Lucky?
Yes, thanks, Chantal. Actually, I know you mentioned earlier what your favorite skate is. We had also a question on our online platform saying, that was from Esther Jacobs, who was saying, my daughter Alba wants to know what your favorite skate is. Hers is the Rostro Raja Alba, of course.
Yes, the big one. That is a really,
Yeah.
really cool one. But I am also partial to really small things. So I quite like the Munchkin skate as well, because as I said, they're only 15 centimeters and they're really little and they're really cute. So I think if I'm going for my favorite, I'd have to say a Munchkin skate.
Great. There's actually a question as well from Jamie, who says, what should we do if we find egg cases that can still be saved?
Oh, I did actually want to mention that. Thank you for asking that question. A very, very good question. So sometimes they will wash up ashore, and if you hold it to the light, you'll see that there's still a baby shark or baby skate in there, and that just means they've washed up sort of without having enough time to hatch. So the best thing you can do is try and put it back in the water. So for example, if it's one of the skate egg cases, you can try and bury it in the sand, not too deep, just if you can go a little bit in the water and try and bury it. If it's a shark, if there's tidal pools or something nearby, you can try and stick them in the tidal pools. If you're close to an aquarium, I know the Two Oceans Aquarium keeps them, so maybe you can pop around there and give it to them. So it just gives the animal a fighting chance, but obviously that's not always possible, so just do what you can. And I did also, there was something else I forgot to mention. So these little babies do spend a couple of weeks, even up to a couple of months within these egg cases, and the parents don't come back to sort of check on them. They lay their egg case and then they go off and do their own thing. But inside the egg case, along with the little baby, they have a really big yolk sac. And this is really nutritious and has all of the energy that they require. So they feed on this yolk sac for a couple of weeks until it's all finished and they've grown big, and then they're getting really uncomfortable in this egg case, and that's when they hatch out. So even though they don't have much parental investment in terms of their parents hanging around, their parents do provide them with enough food and everything that they need to grow up within the egg case.
Thanks, Chantel. Anyone else with any questions? You're free to also just unmute yourself and ask any questions. Here's another question from Darlene. Can you find a cookie cutter shark in Cape Town?
Oh, that is a very good question. Those are very deep water sharks, so you'll never be able to see them from the beach or anything like that because they hang out in much deeper waters. But I do think their range includes some of our deeper waters, but I'm not 100% sure. Please don't quote me. I would have to double check that.
Another question from JC, who says, who's asking, are these sharks not tagged?
No, so there is I want to say a citizen science project called ORI, which is Oceanographic Research Institute, which is actually based in the same place where I'm employed. So I'm employed by SIAB in Grahamstown, and there's also a program there called ORI, where they provide tags to fishermen to tag the sharks. That is not something that we do, so we are just interested in figuring out when and where they occur when you see them. So we're not looking at tagging them to monitor movements or anything like that, just basic distribution. So if you are interested in tagging, please Google ORI, Oceanographic Research Institute Fish Tagging Program, and they will be able to assist you.
Thanks, Chantel. Another question from Esther Jacobs, who says, do you want info on live findings if I spot them on the reef during a dive?
Yes. So that's going to be one of our big drives this year, is to try and get more divers and snorkelers involved. So please, if you are a regular diver or snorkeler and you see them, please let us know. Spread the word within the diving community, because that's really where we need to try and start getting submissions from. And even if you see whether it's the actual animal, whether it's the actual shark or ray or skate, or whether it's the egg case, we want to know about both of them if you're diving and snorkeling. So please let us know.
And there's just a few thank yous from Nicole. She says, thank you so much. This was super interesting. And Leonardo says, a very interesting presentation. Thank you. And the last question, perhaps, I don't know, a lot from a lot family, is there an app for submissions?
No, unfortunately, we haven't developed an app. I did look into this, but it is quite expensive to host an app on both the Android and the iStore. And unfortunately, ELMO is still an unfunded organization, so we don't have any funding. So that is why we developed the WhatsApp line. It's not perfect, but it's a good medium for now. And we hope that with ELMO continuing to grow, we will be able to get some funds and we will be able to develop an app. So that is a sort of future plan that we're hoping to implement.
Great. Just more thank yous coming in. Darlene says, loved it. Jamie says, really informative. Mona Lisa says, very informative presentation. Thank you. The Alot family says, thank you. Not sure if maybe that's about it from the questions. Are there any last minute questions? If not, I just want to say thank you, Chantel, for giving us such an informative session. I'm sure our middle-aged peeps will look forward to going to the beach and practicing some of the skills gained from the session. So thank you to our participants.
Go out, go hunt.
For sure. Thanks to our participants for attending. We do hope you've enjoyed and that you have learned something new and that you will start helping out our scientists in identifying some egg cases. There's another question before we do go. Ethan says, in an area where it is known for plenty of shy sharks, striped catfish, spotted gully shark, etc., when they stop coming out, what could be a reason? I'm not sure if you can see your chat forum.
Yes,
these are going up quite quick.
So we're not really too sure. A really good example of this, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is another huge discussion, is the great white sharks within False Bay. So it was a huge aggregation site for them, and then a couple of years ago the great white sharks pretty much disappeared. Scientists, we still don't fully understand why, but because of the Shark Spotter program, we're able to know that it happened and that the sharks have disappeared. But again, those are really big, really iconic sharks that people look out for. So if they are your smaller species of shark that are suddenly disappearing, we wouldn't really know about it. And unless we know about it, we won't be able to figure out why. So sometimes it's environmental conditions, sometimes it may be there's an illegal fishery operating in the area. There's all sorts of things, and we just really aren't too sure. But as I said, it's really a good early warning signal to help us figure out if there's anything wrong going on, so we can try and ask the questions why.
Fantastic.
Also coming out, just seeing the follow-up comment, there's no more being caught. Sometimes these animals display seasonal patterns. So sometimes they'll be on the west coast in summer and up on the east coast in winter. So that could also potentially be a reason why they're not being caught in a certain season. But again, that's the kind of data we need to be able to answer these questions.
Thanks, Chantal. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be any other questions, but there is just hopes for more of these types of classes via Zoom in the future. Hopefully we'll be able to provide those.
You can see Zach wanting to say goodbye. Where is he?
He's got a little bit camera shy. Very excited to meet a scientist.
Hi,
Thank you so much.
thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's only with your help that we're able to do these things. So thank you, everybody. Hi, Orca volunteers. Hi, Laura. Hi, Johannes. I can see you also sitting there. Awesome.
I think people want more. No one's leaving. We still have the full audience. Better come up with another presentation, Chantel.